Welcome to the Fixing Your City podcast. Here's George Crandall.
Chapter 4, Framework Plan. The design criteria for creating successful neighborhoods, plazas, streets, and retail are very specific. Solutions for fixing a city can be developed only by using fundamental urban design criteria to prepare and evaluate site-specific designs. In the 1990s, 50 years after Frank Lloyd Wright had completed his seminal S.C. Johnson administration building in Racine, Wisconsin, the historic downtown was suffering. Like many Rust Belt cities, Racine was experiencing an economic decline and urban decay due to the shrinking of its once powerful industrial sector. City business leaders looking for a way to reverse this downward trend had commissioned an expensive market study to help them identify key businesses and retailers that could be attracted to a community like Racine. The findings were predictable and not very encouraging. Because Racine is a lakefront city, half of what would typically be considered the market area was actually water. One economist quipped, "And the fish aren't buying anything." Nonetheless, wanting to move forward with the goal of rejuvenating Racine, the S.C. Johnson Foundation invited me to make a presentation about the city's prospects to a group of business leaders and elected officials. I explained to them how a transformation strategy could turn things around. They were intrigued, but also had concerns about how they could justify the money already spent on the market study. I suggested they refer to the market study as Phase 1 and the transformation strategy as Phase 2. That simple solution worked. 1 year on, Racine's transformation strategy was complete and had been adopted by unanimous vote by the City Council. 5 years after that, nearly all the strategy's recommendations had been implemented. A major component of Racine's strategy was a series of public improvements or game changers that were designed to stimulate private investment. The first game changer was the construction of a string of park blocks that connected the heart of the downtown to the lake. These blocks provided adjacent development sites that were attractive to investors who had made it known that if the park blocks were built, they would bring their businesses to the city. On that promise, Racine spent $3 million to construct the park blocks, and private development immediately invested more than $50 million in new projects. Some years later, I was attending a groundbreaking ceremony for a large housing project with substantial retail space on Racine's Main Street. Standing next to me was the out-of-town developer responsible for the project. I asked him why he had been attracted to Racine. His response: "This is the only city in Wisconsin that knows what it wants to be when it grows up." The framework plan is the heart of the transformation strategy. If the framework is weak, the transformation strategy will not succeed. It will become a shelf plan. The development of a framework plan involves preparing land use and transportation alternatives that are responsive to a community's unique issues and concerns, using fundamental design principles to prepare alternative site-specific designs, evaluating alternatives in terms of financial implications and ability to stimulate change, selecting and refining preferred alternatives, and finally, establishing an implementation strategy, priorities, and schedule. Land use and circulation improvements need to be designed in accordance with fundamental urban design principles. At a minimum, a framework plan needs to include urban design solutions for retail, public plazas, neighborhoods, parks, employment districts, civic uses, complete streets, and public transit. The challenge is to produce a framework plan that creates significant momentum towards implementation. Immediate success can turn skeptics into believers. Momentum can be established by prioritizing 5 to 10 projects that can be implemented within the first 5 years. Game changers are public projects that stimulate private investment. Silver bullets are public and private projects that erode the city's investment environment. A successful framework plan must include game changers. Plans that do not include game changers are difficult to implement. Silver bullet projects should be avoided. Determining the appropriate land use is fundamental in designing the features of a city. For example, how best to configure the retail offerings in a downtown so that it thrives. How can parking be designed and located so that it is retail friendly? Where should a public plaza be located so that it is an asset and not a liability? Where do public parks belong, and what features should they include to best serve neighborhoods? What does it take to attract and maintain employment opportunities in the central city? And finally, how can the city create residential neighborhoods with affordable housing and higher density? Retail. A city center without healthy retail is not a place anyone wants to visit or spend time. Everything a shopper might need should be concentrated in a pedestrian-friendly retail environment located in the center of a city or a neighborhood. In every city where I've worked as a consultant, the story has been the same. At one time, the downtown had been a thriving retail center. Then big box stores are built on large tracts of inexpensive land in the suburbs, decreasing the downtown share of the retail markets. Retailers begin abandoning the downtown in favor of more profitable suburban locations. The pedestrian environment in the downtown deteriorates even more as vacant buildings are demolished to create surface parking lots. The combination of a diminished retail offering and a hostile pedestrian environment turns the downtown into a place shoppers want to avoid. When a community starts considering downtown transformation, often the first course of action is to retain an economist to do a market survey. The thinking is that an economist will identify the market trends and emerging niches for which retailers can be recruited. The problem is that economists tend to base their projects on past trends. And if past trends are negative, projections will never be encouraging. I prefer to believe that there will always be a potential for retail if conditions are right, and that retailers will be attracted to locations where risk is minimized and success is possible. The trick is to attract the retailer by designing a retail environment that has the potential to be more appealing than any other location in the city. I call this approach inducing market demand. Determining the right type of configuration for creating a successful retail environment is not mysterious. Whenever a retail developer wants to build a new retail street, shopping mall, or lifestyle center, he or she invariably uses a formula that hasn't changed in decades: the historic Main Street. The Main Street model, with its shops on the ground level along both sides of the street, shops that continue without interruption, is foolproof. Typically, a grocery store serves as an anchor at either end of the street. The length of the street usually does not exceed 1,300 feet, or a comfortable 5-minute walk, and curbside parking is readily available along both sides of the street. Shoppers should be able to find everything they need on a successful Main Street. The amount of retail space required to accommodate a comprehensive mix of shops is approximately 150,000 square feet. At a minimum, an ideal configuration would include a grocery store, a drugstore, clothing stores, restaurants, and coffee shops. No commercial uses such as banks, drive-through services, exercise studios, or offices should interfere with the continuous of street-level retail activities along Main Street. There should be no blank walls and no building setbacks, and fast food restaurants should not be permitted to sit back from the street in order to accommodate drive-throughs. Attractive shop fronts are essential to create a pleasant experience for shoppers. The shops lining the street should have large, well-lit windows, and all shop fronts should engage the pedestrian passing on the sidewalk. A successful retail street is always designed with the pedestrian as the top priority, never the automobile. Sidewalks should be wide with plenty of places to sit and rest or wait for a friend. There should be adequate space on the sidewalk for landscaping and for displaying artwork and shop merchandise. The minimum width of a pleasant sidewalk is 12 feet. Awnings and arcades, also essential elements of attractive sidewalks, help protect the shopper in rain, snow, or bright sunshine. Pedestrian crossings. Shoppers should never feel threatened by automobile traffic. Every intersection must feel safe and comfortable for pedestrian crossing. The distance to cross the street should be kept to a minimum by using curb extensions. Walk signals should be automatic rather than incorporate push buttons so that pedestrians don't have to ask permission to cross the street. Ideally, roadways at intersections are elevated 6 inches in order to eliminate curbs altogether and allow pedestrians to traverse an intersection without having to step off or onto a curb. Parking. Many downtown retailers and parking consultants don't understand what constitutes parking suitable to support retail activity. If parking is not adequate, shoppers will be reluctant to go downtown. Even if curbside parking is available along the main street and side street, it typically provides less than half of the parking required for retail. Additional parking should be provided on the backside of retail blocks or in parking structures connected to the primary retail street. Automobile access. Downtown shops should always be easy to find and convenient to access by automobile. Retail that is located in out-of-the-way places often fails. Retail parking. Office workers are not nearly as selective as shoppers and others heading to downtown for entertainment or a meal. When it comes to looking for parking spaces, office workers are more likely to park in dark, dingy parking structures that are difficult to access because nothing else is available. But retail shoppers will not. Downtown retail has to compete with the ease of parking at suburban shopping malls, with their spacious, grandma-friendly parking lots and structures. Shoppers will avoid the downtown if grandma-friendly parking is not available. A parking structure should be located no more than half a block from the primary retail street or shopping destination. If a shopper has to cross a street to access the retail street, the parking will be perceived as being too far away. Automobile circulation. One-way circulation works best in parking structures because the driver never has to worry about running into an approaching car. It allows the driver to make continuous right-hand turns while searching for a parking space and leaving the structure. Simplicity and predictability are the most important criteria when it comes to circulation in a parking structure. Dead ends are unacceptable. Pedestrian safety. Pedestrian safety is an important design consideration that is often overlooked. Pedestrians need to feel safe when making the journey from the parked car to the street and should never be in a situation where they can't be seen. This means that parking structures must be well lit and open to viewing from adjacent floors. Stairwells and elevators should be adjacent to the street with plenty of windows that allow viewing from the street. Ground floor. Pedestrian-friendly streets require lively building facades at the street level, and parking structures should be no exception. Active uses on the ground floor, such as retail shops and other commercial enterprises, should have facades that are at least 75% transparent, providing views into the interior from the sidewalk. Street corners. It is strongly recommended that ground floor corners of parking structures contain retail and commercial storefronts so that intersections are active and enhance the pedestrian experience. Elevators and stairways should not be located on the corners of parking structures that face an intersection. Character. The facades of utilitarian parking structures are often unpleasant and even ugly, degrading the urban environment. In urban settings, the facades of parking structures should be designed to be compatible with adjacent buildings. Indeed, the best facades do not look like parking structures at all. The photograph is a good example of a harmonious parking structure located in downtown Portland, Oregon. The new 18-story building is adjacent to a 10-story historic building. The first 10 floors of the new building are parking. The facade enclosing the parking uses a design vocabulary, color, window size, and placement detailing, similar to what is found on the historic building. Restaurants and a hotel lobby occupy the ground floor. As I often say to visitors to whom I'm giving a downtown tour, you are standing in close proximity to the largest parking structure in downtown. Can you find it? Some people think it must be below grade, while others often look around, just shrug. Invariably, no one is able to spot it. Public plaza. A community without a public plaza is like a home without a living room. The most memorable cities and towns in the world all have public plazas, magical places that bring life and economic vitality to their surroundings. The concept of the public plaza came to the Americas from Europe. In 1573, King Philip II of Spain signed the laws of the Indies that codified the city planning process, prescribing a public plaza in every city in Spanish territory. Colonists used King Philip's 148 ordinances to locate and build their settlements in the New World. The plaza in San Cristobal de las Casas in the highlands of southern Mexico predates the laws of the Indies but closely follows the prescribed formula. The 1520s plan illustrates the basic plaza concept. The plaza is situated in the center of a grid of streets running north and south and east and west. Roads extend out from the plaza to smaller neighborhood plazas located a quarter of a mile or 5-minute walk away. On one side, a church borders the plaza. On another, government buildings, shops line the remaining two sides. The layout of San Cristobal and its plaza is not unique. The plazas in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Albuquerque, New Mexico are similar. Location. Many communities would like to create a square or plaza as the focal point of their downtown transformation. Few have the ability to do so. A good site can be difficult to find, and establishing the necessary conditions along the edge of the site to ensure the plaza's success is often just as challenging. Because a plaza must be in the symbolic heart of a city, only a few sites in a city are suitable for building a new plaza. The heart of a city can be the center of a commercial district, the crossroads of a circulation system, or the historic city center. Wherever it is, the location must have the potential to provide enclosure, activities around the edges of the plaza, and sufficient size to accommodate large public gatherings. Plazas that do not satisfy these basic requirements risk neglect and may turn into undesirable backwaters. Backwater plazas may feel unsafe. Enclosure. A plaza should be thought of as an enclosed open space, an outdoor room. In order to be successful, it must have well-designed edges. The enclosure defines the space and provides a sense of intimacy. Often adjacent buildings provide enclosure. Other enclosing elements such as columned arcades or landscaping are sometimes used to good effect. Edge uses. The great plazas of the world are surrounded on all four sides by a variety of active ground floor uses, such as restaurants, shops, markets, or hotels. Plazas bordered by inactive uses, such as banks and offices, do not attract the foot traffic needed to become animated. Function. A plaza should be designed to enable all kinds of public events, such as farmers markets, flower shows, lunch hour performances, winter skating rinks, or summer concerts. It should be inviting to people of all ages and offer plenty of places to sit and enjoy an activity or visit with friends. Sometimes designers can become too enthusiastic in cluttering a plaza with design features that limit its ability to accommodate large gatherings. Cluttering can be monuments, water features, children's play areas, performance stages, or landscaping in the wrong location. A common mistake is to combine a plaza with a park. Usually what happens, both are compromised. Safety. Plazas need to feel safe both day and night. Any design feature that restricts sight lines into and through the space should be avoided. Lighting is vital so that pedestrians feel comfortable walking through the plaza in the late evening. Materials. Because plazas are heavily used, they must be able to take a lot of wear and tear over time. All construction materials should, therefore, be of the highest quality, as well as low in maintenance. Urban parks. Parks and open space are essential quality of life amenities for urban areas. The function of an urban park is different from that of a plaza. Parks are designed with specific areas set aside for recreational activities or quiet contemplation. Grassy areas, trees, and pathways typically dominate. A plaza, on the other hand, consists of hardscape, a ground surface that is paved to accommodate large public gatherings throughout the year in all weather conditions. Early city planners understood that parks are important additions to dense urban communities and provide much needed open space, natural settings, and visual relief to a city, as well as space for public recreation. Some communities like Portland, Oregon, Savannah, Georgia were fortunate in that early city fathers created a system of park blocks within the cities. These lovely green spaces make living and working downtown pleasant for residents, shoppers, and businesses. Location. Ideally, urban parks should be located so that they provide easy access for people living in adjacent neighborhoods. In high-density residential neighborhoods, parks are even more essential. The best configuration is one in which every residential and employment neighborhood is within 3 blocks of an urban park. Circulation. Circulation systems within a park will, in part, be determined by the size of the park and the types of recreational facilities it contains. A common error when designing an urban park is to force pedestrians to travel around the edges of the park in order to reach the other side. It is preferable to create pathways that pass through the park, thereby activating the space and channeling pedestrian movements through recreational facilities. Character. Whenever possible, each park should have a unique character and not merely be a replica of some other park. Character can be determined by considering the needs of the community or neighborhood where the park is located. Function. Parks should be designed to accommodate a variety of functions. Neighborhood parks, for example, would benefit from having ample room for sports fields. Smaller parks as well are well suited to children and could include fountains and accommodations for family picnics. Other types of parks are natural areas or urban wetlands. In every case, the park design should be responsive to the unique character of the neighborhood. Safety. Safety becomes an issue if an urban park contains places where people could hide. Security improves when all areas of the park can be viewed from the park perimeter. Adequate lighting will reduce nighttime problems and improve security. Park design should always be reviewed with safety issues in mind. Users. Urban parks should appeal to a wide variety of users and age groups. It is important that there is seating available for quiet contemplation or group discussions. There should also be places for strolling while enjoying the outdoors and for children's play. Urban neighborhoods. The creation of high-density housing neighborhoods, for example, more units per acre, in the city center is an essential ingredient in any transformation effort. A vibrant neighborhood supports retail, restaurants, small businesses, and transit. If essential services are in close proximity, walking often becomes a substitute for an automobile trip. And when trips are made by the car, they will generally be shorter. High-density housing also requires less energy for heating and cooling than does a typical single-family home. Location. In urban areas, there are frequently opportunities for infill housing on vacant lots or on the upper floors of older buildings. While it is helpful to take advantage of these opportunities, they do not have the potential to increase the inventory of downtown housing to a significant degree. Underutilized land, such as an abandoned industrial sites or old rail yards located within proximity of a downtown core, offer much better opportunities for providing new high-density neighborhoods. Retail and services. All neighborhoods need essential retail services, such as a grocery store and a drugstore. Other desirable neighborhood businesses include restaurants, clothing stores, shoe stores, barbers, and hair salons. When developing a new neighborhood, the location of retail shops should not be left to chance. Designating the location and configuration of retail opportunities will enhance the potential for success of the new businesses. Open space. All urban neighborhoods need convenient access to open space. In high-density neighborhoods, a well-designed nearby open space is a quality of life essential. Incomes. Urban neighborhoods should be designed to accommodate people from all income ages and demographics. Condominiums, market rate rentals, and affordable housing can and should coexist. At a minimum, 20% of all housing in an urban neighborhood should be affordable. Portland, Oregon's Pearl District provides a good example of how affordable housing can be successfully integrated into a popular urban setting. 25 blocks of new housing were completed around 2010 at approximately 100 units per acre. 5 blocks are dedicated to affordable housing. A casual observer would not be able to identify from the outside which buildings contain affordable housing and which have market rate rentals. They are all well designed and constructed with durable materials. Pedestrians and bicycles. People are attracted to environments that provide safe walking and bicycling, connecting housing to shopping, open space, and employment. In order to be safe, a bicycle network needs to provide adequate separation from automobiles through the use of curbs or landscaping. Painting bicycle lanes onto the street pavement provides insufficient protection. Schools. The proximity of quality schools is a big consideration for young families. Urban designers need to coordinate with educators to ensure that educational expectations of families will be met. Employment districts. According to recent trends, job seekers prefer to work for employers in downtown with plenty of shops, restaurants, and convenient transit. Employers with work sites located adjacent to amenities, entertainment, and cultural activities have a competitive hiring edge. Employment sites become even more attractive if rental properties and for sale housing are in close proximity. Developers who are aware of this shift in desirability understand that the best investment opportunities for offices and the other buildings that employers seek are downtown, not in the suburbs. Visibility. Developers of large office buildings prefer prominent sites. High building visibility is an opportunity for perpetual advertising. Location. Every business prefers to have a prestige location if possible. It could be an area where other large office buildings are located or a site with special views. Or it could be adjacent to prestigious park, plaza, or cultural facilities. Access. Proximity to transit is becoming a more important determinant for developers when seeking sites for constructing offices and related facilities. More employers are recognizing that a large percentage of their workers want to avoid an automobile commute and prefer to have a job-convenient transit trip. Bicycle commuting is also growing rapidly. Many prospective employers seek an employment site connected to a well-defined bicycle network with protected bikeways. Many employers now realize that providing secure bicycle parking and showers for their employees offers an additional incentive for people to work for them. Shopping and services. The most desirable employment sites are where employees can walk out the door to find a restaurant or a cafe to have lunch. The least desirable are those where employees have to drive to restaurants and shops. Pedestrian environment. The quality of the pedestrian environment is important to many prospective employees. The availability of safe places to walk or even run at lunchtime may be a central factor in their employment decision. Civic uses. Civic and cultural uses include community centers, city halls, courthouses, government buildings, and performing arts centers. It is very common for communities with a strong interest in the arts to think that building a new cultural facility may be the way to jumpstart an anemic local economy. However, with very few exceptions, a cultural facility will not be self-supporting at first, even for many years to come. It can often take a considerable amount of time before a city or a town has a population large enough to support a new cultural facility, or for the local government to be able to provide the financial subsidies required to keep the doors open. Therefore, as a rule of thumb, cultural facilities should not be among the top priorities when embarking on a city transformation effort. Another challenge to get right is a convention center. As appealing as the idea of having a convention center may be, it is a very competitive business. Convention centers that are most attractive to event organizers have an adjacent headquarters hotel as well as restaurants and shopping within walking distance. Sites that have the potential to provide these fundamental requirements can be hard to find for a number of reasons. A large parcel of land necessary for constructing big exhibit halls may not be available within a central downtown area. Even if a site is available, the warehouse-like characteristics of a convention center do not necessarily make for good neighbors to pre-existing activities and structures in the downtown. Another often overlooked consideration is that if the facility is eventually successful, sufficient area in which to expand may not be available. Location. Civic and cultural facilities located in the city center add to the economic vitality of the downtown by attracting customers to retail and other services. The presence of government workers who frequent restaurants and shops contribute to the health of the downtown economy. Government buildings grouped in close proximity to one another can provide a one-stop service for the public. Conversely, automobile travel is encouraged when civic agencies and government buildings are scattered throughout the city. Site. It is not enough to locate important government buildings such as a city hall and courthouse in the city center. As symbols of government, they deserve to be located on prominent sites. Access. Convenient access means Convenient access means a building is easy to find and parking is readily available. Venues for cultural activities will suffer financially if convenient parking is not available within walking distance of the venue. Proximity. People who attend cultural events often like to have dinner before or after an event. Having a cultural facility within walking distance of restaurants can help stimulate attendance at events and promote restaurant dining. Character. Though cultural buildings can be noteworthy for their unique architectural expression, it is also important that they reflect a community's values. For example, if a building is inserted into a historic neighborhood, the new building should respond to its historic context and not appear out of place. As a gesture of respect, the building should use some elements of the established architectural vocabulary in order to fit within its neighborhood. Materials. Because public buildings last for generations, only durable, low-maintenance materials should be used for exterior finishes. Transportation fundamentals. It is too often overlooked that pedestrian-friendly streets are an essential feature in successful urban transformations and can be a major attractor for investors and the public. An important challenge for cities is to provide streets that are pedestrian-friendly. Complete streets. Approximately 40% of the land area in a typical downtown is occupied by paved roads and sidewalks. This land ownership ratio, 40% public and 60% private, presents both an opportunity and a challenge. If the streets are pedestrian-friendly, the downtown will thrive. If the streets are pedestrian hostile, the city is a negligent custodian of the public realm. In response to climate change, cities and towns increasingly recognize to reduce reliance on the automobile and to provide convenient means of public transportation. The concept of complete streets includes all modes of transportation, including pedestrians, bicycles, automobiles, trucks, and all forms of public transit. In this mix, pedestrians should always be the top priority. Sometimes it can be difficult to find a firm that specializes in transportation engineering and does not adhere to the belief that the automobile should be the priority when designing streets. I have frequently had the experience of preparing concept designs for pedestrian-friendly streets, turning them over to an engineering firm to produce the final contract documents, and then finding that features intended to promote pedestrian use and comfort are removed. Most city public work departments and state departments of transportation are staffed with people conditioned to believe that their primary responsibility is to accommodate the ever-increasing demand for automobile travel. To make matters worse, transportation consultants who work for public agencies are reluctant to do anything that would jeopardize their ability to secure the next lucrative contract for a road-related project. It is often considered a heresy for a transportation engineering firm to advocate for improved pedestrian or bicycle systems at the expense of the automobile. Citizens and officials would be well served by understanding these underlying dynamics that may be in play. Pedestrians. In healthy, vibrant cities, the pedestrian should be the priority for street designers. If not, the pedestrian will get what's left over after demands for accommodating automobiles and trucks has been satisfied. A street in which the pedestrian is comfortable is one designed for the most vulnerable, children, the elderly, and the handicapped. Most communities want to make sidewalks and intersections pedestrian-friendly. A good beginning is to provide wide sidewalks, curbside parking that separate pedestrians from moving traffic, and curb extensions to reduce crossing distances at intersections. In addition, storefronts and lively building facades should be fronting the sidewalk. Blank walls, drive-through banks, and parking lots all diminish the pedestrian experience. Bicycles. Bicycles are one of the most effective and environmentally friendly means of transportation. Research indicates that, at best, only roughly 7% of the population will ride a bicycle alongside automobiles or on streets with painted bicycle lanes. The reason for this reluctance is that people fear serious injury from automobiles. Studies show that the only reliable way to bike safety is on protected bikeways, sometimes referred to as cycle tracks. In many European communities, extensive protected bicycle networks connect neighborhoods to major shopping and employment destinations. In these cities and towns, as many as 40 to 50% of all transportation trips are made by bicycle. Automobiles and trucks. The noise and commotion associated with heavy traffic discourages pedestrian activity, mitigating the negative impacts of traffic by limiting automobile speeds, slowing traffic by converting one-way streets into two-way streets, and reducing the number of traffic lanes. A road diet goes a long ways toward creating pedestrian-friendly streets. Public transit. Complete streets are designed to accommodate public transit. Transit stops should be integrated into the street design without compromising or restricting pedestrian circulation. Location. Not every street can or should be a complete street. Some existing streets don't have sufficient right-of-way, and others don't connect neighborhoods to employment and shopping destinations. Budget constraints can also prevent the creation of a complete street. For new development, an important first step is creating a complete street is to identify a network of streets that connect neighborhoods to trip generators, such as employment and shopping, and to include protected bikeways along those streets. Character. A complete street will provide features typically not found on city streets. These include wider sidewalks, attractive landscaping, artwork, and human-scaled lighting. Other characteristics include special bicycle signals located at intersections to help eliminate bicycle and automobile conflicts, and safer, shorter pedestrian crossings at intersections. Public transit. Ideally, public transit will be available within a 5-minute walk from any location in the city. The secret to improving the use of public transit is to provide 1, dependable arrival and departure times, 2, a reasonable amount of travel time to reach a destination, and 3, connections to desirable work and shopping areas. Achieving these goals will be more likely if transit has an exclusive right-of-way that connects to major employment and shopping destinations. Communities that wisely invest in light rail and modern streetcar systems sometimes overlook the importance of updating their plans and ordinance so that they incorporate sufficient development densities along the rail alignments. Without density, ridership does not materialize, and the transit lines risk operating at a deficit. Modes. Taxis, buses, bus rapid transit, BRT, and light rail transit, LRT, are the most common modes of public transit. BRT, promoted as an alternative concept to an LRT system, entails running buses in lanes reserved exclusively for bus use. BRT is cheaper to build than LRT and so is often attractive to city administrators. However, the downside of a proposed BRT system is that buses may be forced to intermingle with traffic if street size is not sufficiently wide, resulting in congestion and delays which will discourage ridership. Streetcars which share traffic lanes with automobiles have special station platforms built exclusively for them. These platforms engage the tracks at fixed stops with multiple door openings, enabling rapid loading and unloading of passengers. The latest trend is to locate streetcars in exclusive, dedicated lanes. Connections. To reduce dependency on the automobile, public transit must connect neighborhoods to employment and shopping destinations. Arrival and departure interval. The maximum wait time between arrivals and departures for public transit is 15 minutes. Waiting any longer tends to discourage ridership. Transit stops. Unfortunately, not all transit agencies do a good job of providing weather protection at transit stops. Waiting for transit with minimal protection from rain, wind, or cold is a disincentive. Character. Traveling on public transit should feel comfortable and safe. Comfort is associated with good seating, a clean environment, and a controlled temperature. A safe environment is harder to define. Almost everyone has had the misfortune of riding with individuals who are intoxicated, on drugs, disorderly, or mentally ill. Such experiences cannot be completely avoided. An active transit security force that monitors passenger behavior can create a sense of security.
Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe to get updates for future chapters.